Welcome to the Private School Leader Podcast, where private school leaders learn how to thrive and not just survive as they serve and lead their schools. I strongly believe that it is possible to have a long and happy and fulfilling career as a private school leader. And my passion is to help you figure out exactly how to do just that, right here on the Private School Leader Podcast. And I'm your host, Mark Minkus. So I listen to a lot of sports talk radio, and if you're listening to this in real time, the NFL playoffs are going on, and once the Super Bowl ends, there's kind of a dead period for sports, and that's when sports talk radio hosts come up with other topics, and one of the things they want to talk about is who is the GOAT in a particular sport. And so GOAT is an acronym for greatest of all time, and they'll debate that and who's the GOAT on this particular team or in this sport or what have you. And for me, it's easy when it comes to basketball because my favorite athlete of all time is Michael Jordan, and Michael Jordan is certainly the GOAT of basketball. As much as it pains me to say it because I'm not a fan, Tom Brady, I think, is the clear GOAT of football. And with hockey, Mario Lemieux, Wayne Gretzky, I go with Lemieux. And then baseball, many people say Babe Ruth, some people say Willie Mays. I actually think that Shohei Ohtani for the Dodgers, who's playing now, has the chance to be the greatest of all time. And so why am I talking about GOATs in sports? Well, I want to talk about the GOAT of leadership books. In my opinion, the greatest of all time of leadership books is the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell. And law number 1 is called Lift Your Lid. And so, on today's episode of the Private School Leader Podcast, we're going to discuss 3 ways to lift your leadership lid. And just before we jump into that, I want to give you a free gift. You know, you're back to school after winter break if you're listening to this in real time, and sometimes you, at this point in the year, are dealing with a difficult teacher, and contract season or offer letter season is coming up. And so I want to help you with that. I have a resource called How to Deal with Difficult Teachers, and it will give you all of the things that hopefully will be helpful for you. The 7 strategies to effectively deal with difficult teachers, bad attitude, performance, whatever the case might be. The privateschoolleader.com/difficult is where you can get a free guide. It's a PDF, the 7 strategies for effectively working with difficult teachers. Okay, so we're talking about the law of the lid, the law of the leadership lid. I told you, in my opinion, the GOAT of leadership books is the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell. And law number 1 is the law of the lid. So what I want to do is just briefly explain the law of the lid and then give you 3 ways that I think you can lift your lid. So in his book, John Maxwell writes just to give a plug for the book, I mean, it's a pick it up and put it down book. It's very applicable. It's a very easy read. It's based on wisdom of many years of leadership. I think he's one of the most prolific writers on leadership in the world. And so lifting your lid is law number 1, the law of the lid. And in the book it says, quote, leadership ability determines a person's level of effectiveness. And this is the foundation for everything else, end quote. So I want you to think about it this way. If you were to give a numeric scale rating to your leadership, so let's say that in your current position at your school, that as a leader, you're a 6 out of 10. Now, I'm not giving a bunch of criteria, and obviously it's very arbitrary as far as, well, how did we even get to that number? But let's say that you're a 6 out of 10. Well, your leadership ability is like a lid on your school or on your division. And so where I'm going with this is, whatever the potential is for your school, if you're a 6 out of 10 leader, your school will keep bumping up against the lid of your leadership, and your school can only reach 60% of its true potential with you as the leader. And so let's say that you're an 8 out of 10 leader. Okay, well, that's a lot better, and that's awesome. But there's still room for improvement, because your school is going to bump up against your lid, and they're only going to achieve 80% of what they could be, of programming and student achievement and the sports program and the fine arts program and effective delivering on the mission, and just every single thing that we want to do as school leaders and as schools, that we're the lid. We are the leadership lid on our schools. Okay. So obviously we want to lift that lid. One last thing on the law of the lid. John Maxwell applies it to organizations, and he talks about how they can't rise above, that leader. And he says, a leader, this is another quote, an organization will never outperform its leadership capacity, end quote. So he goes on to talk about how it doesn't matter how much vision, how much talent, how much passion, how much work ethic the team has, the school has, the facilities that you have, the transportation that you have, all of the things, the bells and whistles, it's still going to bump up against your leadership lid. And, Maxwell talks about how you, as the leader, could be an incredibly hardworking person and still have a low leadership lid. You can be a deeply committed leader and still have a low leadership lid. You can have great people on your team and still be the ceiling, the cap, the lid on their effectiveness, because your leadership is about how decisions are made and how people grow and how problems are handled and how your school's mission and vision is translated into action, and whether or not your portrait of a graduate actually comes true with your graduates. And so if you want to pause and think on this very arbitrary scale, rating yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being the worst and 10 being the best, what is your number? What do you think you are on that 1 to 10 leadership scale? Now, if you're a 10, you could probably turn off this podcast episode right now. But for everyone else that's still here, we have room to lift our leadership lid. And so I'm just going to give you 3 ways that I think that you can lift your leadership lid. And the first one is to read a leadership book. And so I was just talking about John Maxwell's book, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. Another book that I think is a great book for leaders is Start With Why by Simon Sinek. And you can find, again, this is just my opinion, but I came up with my top 10 list of leadership books. And if you go to theprivateschoolleader.com/top10, you'll find a list of what I think are the top 10 leadership books. John Maxwell's 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership is number 1, if you go to check that out. And also on that top 10 page, I have what I think are the top 10 productivity books, and also the top 10 TED Talks that a private school leader could watch. And so the whole goal of today's episode is to get you thinking about where you are, how good of a leader you are with your hard skills, with your soft skills, the hard skills like decision making and budgeting and strategic planning and projects, fundraising, enrollment, student discipline, teacher supervision, those hard skills, but also your soft skills like empathy and listening and emotional intelligence. And so, again, I'm not trying to get you to, feel bad about yourself. I just want you to pause and give an accurate assessment of yourself, because we want to grow. This podcast is about growth, is about helping you grow. And so I want to help you lift your leadership lid. One way to do that is to read a leadership book. And if you want some ideas, you can go to theprivateschoolleader.com/top10. Okay, we're talking 3 ways to lift your leadership lid. Number 2 is to listen to this podcast, and you're already doing that. And for some of you, this is episode 169. Some of you have been along for the ride since episode 1. Some of you have come along a little later. Maybe some of you, this is your first episode that you're listening to. But you'll notice, let's just say you go to Apple, you go to Spotify, wherever you listen, and you scroll through the different topics. Maybe you're struggling with parents who are intimidators, and they're relentless, and they're taking up a lot of headspace. Well, you could go to the episode about how to handle the 5% of parents that are trying to destroy your school. I think it's episode 26. You could look at, I think it's episode 125. This is an eviction notice for the parent that's living rent-free in your head. And it's about ruminating thoughts and about not being able to stop thinking about a parent or about a school issue. So you could find many episodes on dealing with parents. There's episodes on dealing with difficult teachers. There's episodes on how to improve your leadership. And that's what we're talking about on this episode, is to how to grow as a leader. And it's free. It's free for you to listen to the podcast. For a book, usually books are around $20-25, but if you go to the library, most of the books on that list are going to be at your local library, and you can check it out for free. And if you're looking for a place to get started, what I would suggest is at the end of 2023, the end of 2024, and the end of 2025, the last episode of the year is usually the one that's called the top 10 leadership nuggets from that year. And that could give you kind of a one episode to listen to, and then it could take you in a variety of directions. And then the show notes for those episodes have links to those episodes. So I guess what I'm getting at is that whether you've been here from the beginning or you're new to the podcast, there are ways that you can use this podcast and the information here to help you grow as a leader. Some of it is situational. You've got a problem that you're dealing with that you want to make it better. And some of it is just growth oriented, soft skills and hard skills. And so again, number 1, read a book. Number 2, listen to the podcast. And then number 3, I want to share something with you that I've just launched that is a new kind of professional development for you. And I want to tell you about it. Just take a couple minutes to tell you about it. And I want to ask you a question, though. Are you running your school, or are you leading your school? And the reason I'm asking you this question, are you running your school or leading your school, is because I'm hearing this a lot from coaching clients, from PSL Pro members, from podcast listeners who are emailing me that they're just so frustrated with the tyranny of the urgent keeping them from working on the school's future. And they feel stuck because there's strategic things like finances or staffing or enrollment that are just like ignored or unfinished because you just can't get to them because you don't have the time to plan. And then I hear sometimes that either this happened or there's a fear that this is going to happen is that you could make a big mistake because you let something drop, or because you were just so stressed out and so tired that you reacted instead of pausing and responding. And, we want to be strategic thinkers. We want to be proactive. We want to go from being that proactive manager to being we want to go from being that reactive manager to being that proactive leader. We want to avoid getting pulled into these low-level tier 1 issues that really shouldn't require our involvement, but we always seem to be getting sucked into these things. And we want to just avoid that exhaustion that goes along with all of this, because I don't think that you that are listening to this episode right now, I don't think you said yes to school leadership to live in a constant mode of reacting and survival and tyranny of the urgent. I think you want to build something meaningful at your school and not just survive for another week. And here's the problem. Urgency feels productive. Reactive leadership feels productive, but it just keeps us stuck. It keeps our school stuck, and it takes away our ability to be strategic and visionary and proactive. And so what I've done is I've created what is called the Proactive Leader Mastermind. And this is a high trust, high challenge, high touch cohort of 12 leaders who are ready to stop running their schools and start leading their schools. And so the first session meets on January 21st, 2025, if you're listening to this in real time. And I just want to take a couple minutes and tell you about it. And then if you're interested, you can check it out at theprivateschoolleader.com/mastermind. But I want to just let you know that, all of that stuff I said a minute ago about feeling stressed out and, you're reactive and the tyranny of the urgent is kind of keeping you from being strategic or being proactive, and you just wish that you could be that type of leader. I know how you feel. Like, I did that for years, and I was in that kind of daily grind of parent complaints and student discipline issues and teacher drama, and that kept me from being strategic and proactive, and I was frustrated. I was also a little embarrassed and ashamed. Have you ever felt that way? You go through a month, you go through a school year, and you kind of wonder, what did I actually get done? Because I was running my school. I was surviving. I was getting through the school year. I wasn't really leading. I wasn't proactively taking my school somewhere. And listen, it's not just you and it's not just me. Over the years, I've coached about 100 different private school leaders, and every single one of them, I ask them the same thing. I say, finish this sentence. I really wish that I had more time to blank. And I want to tell you what 95% of those people, 95% of private school leaders that I've asked to finish that sentence, they say the same thing, and they say two things, actually. They say one of two things. I really wish that I had more time to get into classrooms, or I really wish I had more time to spend on planning and thinking strategically. And so I know that there are people listening to this episode that you feel that way. Well, here's the problem. You have a good idea. You have a good intention to want to proactively lead your school, but things are kind of set up for you to fail with regards to how complex and how busy and how chaotic sometimes things are at our schools. And in order to help you grow into this proactive leader, you need the right kind of professional development. And see, here's the thing. Traditional PD isn't working for most private school leaders because you go to a conference and you get inspired, but that inspiration kind of fades, and you read a book, and I know I told you to read a book, but they don't implement themselves, right? And podcasts might motivate or inspire you, but then that kind of doesn't translate into change either. And I know I just said that and on a podcast. You don't need another webinar. You don't need another binder. You don't need another conference. I think that what you need, I want you to lean in. I want you to listen to this. I think what you need is a structured, facilitated space where you can think like a leader. You need a cohort of other private school leaders who understand you, who get it, who know what you're going through. You need a place where you can get real help with the dilemmas and problems that you're facing at your school. You need a support system of other private school leaders who understand what it's like to lead a school. And then some accountability that leads to action, because here's the thing. You don't need more information. You are having information overwhelm. What you need is a transformation. And that's why I created the Proactive Leader Mastermind. And so a mastermind is not a webinar or a course or another piece of content. It's a structured, facilitated space where leaders can slow down and think clearly and learn from each other and make better decisions together. Because I think too much of us, I was talking about sports at the top of the episode. Leading our private schools feels like an individual sport, but it could be a team sport if you have a cohort of leaders. So real quick, what is it? What is the Proactive Leader Mastermind? It's a cohort of 12 private school leaders who meet twice monthly, starting January 21st, 2025. They meet twice monthly for 5 months to do two things exceptionally well. Number one, to build proactive leadership habits. We as the cohort can turn you into a proactive leader. And number two, solve real leadership dilemmas in real time. So how does this actually work? Okay, it's 5 months. There's 2 meetings a month. The first meeting is the leadership lab. The second meeting is the dilemma lab. The leadership lab, 90 minutes. There's a 10-minute check-in with the group. 40 minutes of focused teaching from me, where some of the teaching topics are how to go from reactive manager to proactive leader, how to be the architect of your school's future, the secret to getting into classrooms more often, strategic thinking 101, how to optimize your team, et cetera, et cetera. So I teach you for 40 minutes, teach the group, and then for 40 minutes, we have guided breakout groups where there's discussion and application to your school. That's the leadership lab once a month. And then the dilemma lab once a month. 10-minute check-in. One leader shares their dilemma lab for 35 minutes. Dilemma lab number 1, then dilemma lab number 2 for 35 minutes, and then 10 minutes of discussion and application. And so you're thinking, what the heck is a dilemma lab? Well, in some masterminds, they call it hot seat. I don't like that name, so I call it dilemma lab. The leader, we follow a very specific cohort, a very specific protocol in the cohort. The leader presents a real dilemma from their school. The cohort members ask clarifying questions without judgment or giving advice. They start talking and pouring into that leader maybe some assumptions, some blind spots, some biases that are revealed. And then in real time, the group explores, uses the wisdom of the group, and comes up with a clear, actionable plan that's created in real time. The mastermind is not something new. This is something that's been around for hundreds, maybe even thousands of years. But across all industries, there's a lot of research to support that this is a way that is highly effective for leaders to grow and learn together. And so the promise that I would make is that if you join this cohort, number one, you'll go from being a reactive manager to being a proactive leader. And number two, people that know you, that matter to you will start saying, she is a proactive strategic leader. Or they'll start saying, he is a proactive strategic leader. I want you to think about that. People that know you, your team, other administrators at other schools, your board chair, he's a strategic leader. She's a proactive leader. What's the evidence of the transformation? You're going to go from letting the school year happen to you to being the architect of your school year. You're going to go from putting out fires to preventing them. You're going to go from being the default problem solver to optimizing your team and helping them solve problems. You're going to go from doing it all alone to having a cohort of other leaders in your life and in your corner. And you're going to go from running your school to leading your school. But I know what you're thinking. And this is a really important moment for you because you're thinking, there is no way that I have time for 2 meetings that are 90 minutes. January through May, there's no way that I have time to meet for 90 minutes twice a month. I just want you to suspend your disbelief and just view this through the lens of, you need this, and if you need this, you will figure out a way to make this work, to prioritize this investment in yourself, and to fiercely protect that time. Or you can just say, oh, that'll never work, and you can stay stuck. So the dates and the times, it's all there for you at theprivateschoolleader.com/mastermind. I just want you to be open to the possibility that there's a way that you could go from being a reactive manager to being a proactive leader. So on today's episode, we were talking about lifting your leadership lid. John Maxwell says you can only rise. Your organization, your school can only rise as far as your leadership ability. And then we talked about 3 ways to lift your leadership lid. Number 1, read a leadership book. You can go to theprivateschoolleader.com/top10 to see some suggestions. Number 2 is listen to this podcast. And recently, episode 166, 10 leadership nuggets of 2025. Maybe that's a place to start if you're new to the podcast. And then number 3 way to lift your lid is to join the Proactive Leader Mastermind that starts on January 21st. Only 12 spots. Already a few spots have filled up. First come, first served. theprivateschoolleader.com/mastermind for more information. And your call to action for this episode is to pick one way to lift your lid and proceed. Whether it's a book, whether it's a podcast episode, whether it's going to theprivateschoolleader.com/mastermind and checking that out, just pick one action and take that action. And a quick reminder, free to you 7 strategies to effectively deal with difficult teachers. Go to theprivateschoolleader.com/difficult. And I just appreciate you so much. I'm so glad that you took some time out of your week to be here today. I've been your host, Mark Minkus, and I will see you next time right here on the Private School Leader Podcast. And until then, always remember to serve first, lead second, and make a difference.